This is a clip about how to start on the ADU process. It's from a conference I just did in Oakland, hosted by the Casita Coalition. I'm just going to share the snippet that I think is most relevant. It's got a lot of the early steps for how to think about your ADU process, timelines, costs, and how to iterate between different steps. Additionally, it shows you kind of how to run an ADU event. You know, in the event, I speak a lot about the things that homeowners can do that day to go around, talk to different vendors, and learn as much as they can. That's really critical. If you're either running an event, you need to think about what you're trying to communicate to homeowners then and there that day. If you're a homeowner, you need to consider going to an event like this because nothing beats face-to-face.
Please welcome Ryan O'Connor.
Thank you so much. That's a lot of finance on a sunny Saturday afternoon in Oakland. So to incentivize myself to keep this short and let you guys do the real learning, I have been given a cookie by one of the vendors, and I do not get to eat the cookie until we're done. So we're gonna keep it real short because I like cookies, in case that wasn't obvious. We're gonna talk a little bit about the broad ADU process. And you know, having chatted with a few of you today, I think one of the things to keep in mind is that, that's just me. One of the things to keep in mind is that it's a very versatile tool, right? You can do a lot of different things with accessory dwelling units, but that also means it's very complicated. We're all going to be on some very different journeys. You know, just in this brief conversation, I've talked to some people who already live multi-generational in 2 units, but they have to move now. And they want to make sure that they preserve that lifestyle without disrupting their children's house. I've talked to some people who already have the plan, the design, the budget, and now they're shopping around for GCs, and the project costs 2 times more than they thought. So now you're back to square one, right? And that's, I've talked to people who are just starting to pencil and trying to figure out alternative construction methods. And everybody in this room has a different path to getting your ADU or deciding on another option that's going to work for you and your family. The one thing we all have in common is that we are in the right place to make this discovery. You are in a room with the leading experts in the Bay Area to make your ADU a reality. They are not all the perfect vendor for you, but they mostly have the knowledge that you need to find the right vendor. So today is about going around and talking to people, because the good news is ADUs are very feasible now, right? Like the laws are much simpler. There are new tools that help you figure out the regulations. There are vendors who've done more than a few of these so that they know how to actually get the process done A to Z. It's a mature market, and you're sitting in the room with the maturest, that's not a word, people to make that happen. The other news is slightly less positive, is that things are still complicated. You know, every jurisdiction is passing these rules and enforcing them in slightly different ways. These are 2 ordinances about the hillside in Berkeley and Oakland that just came up in the past 6 months. So anybody who tells you it's going to be easy is selling you something. You do need to work with professionals who know what's going on, because this stuff changes faster than city councils can meet, or at the same speed, right? So another thing to keep in mind, why you're in a room full of professionals today. Now that said, there's also cool new stuff that's going on all the time, because those changes are sometimes good. Oakland's just released 3 pre-approved plans that you can use that their planning department is licensing for free, right? There are local programs like Keys to Equity, which is in the room today, that are finding innovative ways to provide financing for families that might not be able to access that equity in their house otherwise. There's state programs. Cal HFA has increased its $25,000 grant to $40,000 just in the past 3 weeks. This is stuff that you probably don't wake up and check your cell phone for Cal HFA grant news alerts, but we do. So you're in the room with us today so that you can connect with the right people to know all this stuff. There's some new toys. If any of the vendors are wondering how to get their photos in this presentation, 1, you got to invite me to job sites, and 2, you got to give me cookies. There are new toys that help us do things differently, faster, and different processes than before. There are new ideas that are letting us bridge the gap between traditional on-site and off-site construction. And the goal with all of this stuff today is to remember this is a long process. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So take your time today, that's why we're keeping it short, so you could go around and talk to the pros, ask the questions, try to get the right team together to help you make that project a reality. Typical timeline, this is kind of duplicative, so real fast. Planning, give yourself 1 to 3 months, easy. Permits, once you put in that application, it's going to take a minimum 2 to 3 months. Cities have been asked to keep up with 60 days, but it's hard. And during the pandemic, we're easily seeing a lot of 90-day delays, and that's without comment. So brace yourself for a process. Construction, there's not too much to these once you get everything lined up. So we often see projects coming in between 6 and 12 months. And if any of this feels like an overgeneralization, it's because it is, because every one of your projects is different, and they're all going to end up at different ends of these extremes. So there's 3 big pillars. We've got design, finance, and budget. And we've already talked a bunch about finance, but what you're going to realize is that all these pillars are connected. This is kind of representative of my mental state when I look at design, finance, and budget. So again, apologies for the formatting, but basically you're going to have to iterate between all of these concepts over and over to make sure you plan something that you want that solves your need, B, can afford it and access the funds, and then go back and go like, oh, I can't afford that. What can I afford? Change your budget, or go around these iterations as much as you need to make the project work for you. And then once you get it all planned, then you're onto the permit and then the build. And again, you're going to want to talk to everybody in this room about all the details for your specific project. But the tip number 2, if you can't tell from my rambling, is plan, and plan again. I think planning is the part where this project is cheap. Once you start accessing funds, once you start breaking ground, things get expensive real fast. Things get harder. It gets harder to change your mind. Know what your goals are up front. Talk to as many people now, today, because the project gets harder and harder to change as you go down that road. And tip number 3, keep your eye on the prize. You're building a big old house. People call it small, people call it tiny. These are homes. They make a big lifestyle difference. And you're gonna have some days where you feel great, and you're gonna have some days where you're like, this is hard. But you're building a house. It's worth it. It's worth it. Hang in there. And then tip number 4, meet with professionals today. This is the perfect opportunity. Go around. You're never gonna, I wake up and obsess about this stuff, and I've never been in a room with this many experienced people, this many years on the job. So learn at the feet of the masters today. Later, when you're like, I wish I had talked to more people, go check out this little known YouTube channel called How To ADU, where I just obsess about housing. And come hang out with me, please, and learn about housing and build housing, and let's help everybody.
Now, if you want to watch the full video from that day, the Casita Coalition is hosting it here. And if you want me to speak at an event like the Casita Coalition's Oakland Homeowner Webinar, you can write to me at ryan@howtoadu.com. Thanks for watching.